From KPFK in Los Angeles, California, Valley Free Radio in Florence, and WMBR in Cambridge, Massachusetts, WNUC in Detroit, and biketalk.org worldwide, this is Bike Talk.
Bike Talk.
Welcome to Bike Talk. I'm Taylor Nichols.
And I'm Nick Richard.
Hey, Nick. We've been talking about bike share lately. Is there much bike share in Western Massachusetts?
Yeah, there's a bunch of towns that have a valley bike. There's 5 towns that
there
share.
You go. Good. Well, I've been traveling, and so I've been using a lot of bike share. And we've been talking with a few different people on the show about bike share. Chris Bruntlett last week spoke about it and talked about how in China they do it for pennies. He even said it almost beats having your own bike because it's so cheap. And Dave Snyder, a couple of weeks ago, talked about bike share and about how it should be priced to change the behavior of the transportation user. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And so we have Justin Hu-Nguyen with us, who is the co-executive director of Bike East Bay. Justin, welcome to Bike Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You have a great program there called Bay Wheels.
Yeah, since 2017, the bike sharing program launched in the Bay Area. I think around 2019, e-bikes were added to the fleet. They only launched e-bikes in Oakland only about a year ago, but we've seen ridership just go out the ceiling. We have a large flat town, don't have the density necessarily of New York or San Francisco, so e-bikes make all the difference, and we've seen just riders, students just pick it up and fly. The city of Oakland actually launched a e-bike lending program itself. In addition to the short-term bike sharing program, there's one we can take a bike home for a month for $120.
Well, I love that idea. So you can really try it out to see if you really like it and use it all the time.
Yeah, especially in communities that aren't serviced by the bike sharing program, which is not across all of Oakland, especially those equity priority communities. It really allows options for having e-bike change your commute and change your habits and not having to wait around for an expansion of the bike sharing program.
E-bikes can be expensive, so $120 a month is not that bad.
Yeah, and then if you are on care benefits like CalFresh or PG&E Care, it's only $20 for that month. So that's really, really affordable. The only thing you have to do is have a $500 deposit, which the city's trying to figure out, is that the right choice, knowing that it is an expensive piece of equipment, but we also want people to be responsible and have a low barrier to access.
What have you seen?
They launched this earlier this week, so I don't think we've seen a lot of usage just yet, but it's pretty exciting. People can have an e-bike. Hopefully there's more of these hubs throughout Oakland, but it's a good option. It's a really strong bike. We've had people test ride them. I think because the Bay Wheel stations aren't close enough together, it gives a good option for people who aren't serviced well enough. And I think that's the exciting part. And hopefully find more good partnerships and get more people on these bikes, because there's going to be 50 of them at this hub.
So if you want to rent a long-term e-bike, do you just go to a regular bike rack and rent it? Or do you have to go through special things and rent it from a store or from one of your hub bases or something?
For Bay Wheels, the short term, the stations are fine. But for this program, they're using Bike Hub, which is a full-service bike shop and valet inside the Fruitvale. It's actually the first secured bike parking in all of the country. So pretty cool, fun fact.
In the country?
Yeah.
The first secure?
Yeah, the first fully staffed secured bike parking in the country.
Wow.
So it's a nice little bike shop next to the subway station, the BART station, and they have bikes that you can sell, service, and now bikes you can rent for a month.
Amazing. $20. And you would take it home and charge it?
Yeah, they give you integrated lights, there's suspension, there's a lock, there's a helmet. Yeah, you take it home, charge it, it's yours for the month.
Wow.
Can you do 2 months in a row, or is it kind of a 1 month and then you got to give it back and make a decision as to whether you want to buy one and free that bike up for somebody else?
I think it's kind of like a library system where if you want to check it out again, you can check it out again, assuming there's no wait list. We've talked about, is there a discount to buy a bike one day? But, there really is a really good incentive program inside the East Bay right now. The local utility has an e-bike incentive program that gives around $1,000 to $1,200 for an e-bike, which is active right now. And they've given out a couple thousand already. So that's a great way to apply. And if you want it, get the incentive, buy a bike if you really love it.
Nick, I'm trying to think if $120 would change my behavior. I mean, is that cheap enough that I wouldn't be taking the bus or an Uber? Or, what's your take on the price point?
Not 120, but 20, yes.
Well, 20, totally. But 20 is for people that are on public assistance.
Yeah, I mean 120, like for example, the bus here is like around $3, I guess, depending how far you go on BART, or like $4 to $6. So like that stacks up pretty quickly if you're a daily
Sure.
commuter. So I think that's the problem. Like anything over $100, I think people feel a little bit of sticker shock. But like if you are taking the bus or subway every day at full price, that is maybe like a quarter of your transit budget for the year,
Right,
for the
right.
month.
And Nick, as we both have talked about, e-bike rentals from the rack can be expensive. Sometimes it's $5 just to take it out of the rack, and then it's 30 cents a minute or something like that, and that adds up really quickly.
Yeah, I think the $3 to $4 unlock here in the Bay Area around 15 to 30 cents a minute, depending if you're on membership. If you're not on bike share membership, it is expensive if you're not on a
Right.
current membership. But as you use it more, it kind of all you can ride really. And that's really what we want. I think if we can price e-bikes to all you can ride, I think people will change that behavior in a way that
Yeah.
is far more transformative than this by minute rate. How do we get to that point with public subsidies or investments made support of how we make that change really happen?
Well, that was one of the things that Dave Snyder said is that bike share needs to be publicly supported, just like
Mm-hmm.
we subsidize cars and highways and buses and subways. Justin
Yeah.
Hu-Nguyen of Bike East Bay, thanks a lot. How do people find the program?
So that's at Fruitvale Station. So if you go to Fruitvale BART Station across the alleyway, there's Bike Hub. It's a bike shop, and you can just stop in and say hi. They're open 7 to 7 p.m. And then you can always fill the intake form online.
All right. If you're in the Bay Area,
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, since we're in the Bay Area, Nick, I got a chance to talk with Joel Engardio. Joel is a San Francisco city supervisor, which is like a city councilman, and he is the one who stuck his neck out for the Sunset Dunes Park and was recalled. So this is a chance to speak with someone who really championed the cause and kind of got bit in the butt for it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
We often talk about how to turn bicycle riders into advocates and how to turn advocates into politicians and how to turn politicians into champions. And there are few champions of the urban bicycle movement in the United States. And one of them is our guest today. Joel Engardio was the District 4 City Council Supervisor for San Francisco. Joel, welcome to Bike Talk.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I found out about you because of what's called the Sunset Dunes and the Great Highway. And I wonder if you could explain to our audience a little bit about what the Great Highway was. To me, that's an oxymoron. And what the Sunset Dunes are and have become, and how that led to what I'm sure we will be talking about today.
Yeah. About 100 years ago, people decided to build a 4-lane highway at the coast. At that point, Western San Francisco was entirely sand dunes. And the idea was we need to expand, we need to build housing, we need to develop all this sand into something, and let's build a highway to get people back and forth. And this highway went along the coast for about 2 miles. And so for the last century, it's been this really convenient route for motorists to bypass kind of most of San Francisco and get from, the Richmond district in the north all the way to Daly City in the south and just bypass the rest of San Francisco. It also became a really popular in the 1950s when the car culture really came into full force and it was all about see the USA in your Chevrolet and like, all that ad
Right.
marketing from
Sure.
General Motors and whatnot. And so Great Highway was part of that, and it became very nostalgic and part of lore for like people growing up because Great Highway, it was 2 miles of uninterrupted road along the ocean. So teenagers in the 60s and 1970s would drag race down there.
Right.
So there was, and it was part of surf culture and drag race culture and car culture. This highway bisected like your ability to get from the city to your coast. And you had to cross this highway with no traffic signals or pedestrian
Right.
access at all. There were some tunnels that went under the highway in the early days, but then they got closed off because of nefarious activities and whatnot. So
Sure.
ultimately, there were pedestrian fatalities, people trying to cross the road to get to the beach. And so they put up traffic signals that were basically there to keep people safe crossing onto the beach. So the drag racing ended. And so,
Right.
but people remember it. So if you're in your 70s today and been a long time San Franciscan, you remember your teenage years and drag racing at Great Highway. So when the talk came about Great Highway losing its greatest utility, people resisted, saying, this road means so much to me, and the car culture means so much to me. And why was Great Highway losing its greatest utility? Because of climate change, because of severe coastal erosion. This road is next to the ocean. The southern part, the part that was so important as the connector to Daly City, was literally falling into the ocean. And so
Wow.
that part of the Great Highway was going away no matter what. It literally just could not be saved. And yet people desperately tried to save a road falling into the ocean. And they even put a ballot measure for a citywide vote to save this section. Don't like pour how countless hundreds of millions of dollars into saving this road because it means so much to us. That ballot measure failed. And we cannot reclaim this part of the road, and it is going away. So it raised these questions. Then what's the best use of the rest of the Great Highway? If we can't use it for that convenient connector to Daly City anymore, all the traffic is going to have to divert inland no matter what. What should we do with this middle section of the Great Highway? So that became the raging debate that turned into Sunset Dunes, because right now that middle section is now a park
Right.
of great controversy. And it all began during the pandemic because we needed space to social distance. And so this is before I became a city council member or a city supervisor. But people in office at that time decided to just close that middle section down and let people go out there and social distance and exercise and do things for the pandemic. And it became a magical place. People built community. They realized what was possible because it was
Right.
unthinkable to close the great highway, right? Like who
Right.
after 100 years, how could you even think of it? But the pandemic showed us what was possible. The New York Times even did a little piece about it because they did a something called 52 Places for a Changed World. And this
Oh,
closed Great Highway was one of the 52. So it
right.
was really a wonderful, magical place. But when the pandemic ended, people were rabble-rousing to say, all right, get that road open again. So then it became this huge contention among those who said, get the cars back on the road, and those who said, wait a minute, we just proved this is a great space. And so there was a temporary compromise where then we reopened the road just Monday through Friday, and we kept it closed on the weekends. And that compromise was litigated and appealed to the Coastal Commission, and people fought and fought and fought. They did not even want to even have the weekend compromise. And yet the weekends became so popular, this space, this asphalt, there was like not even a park amenity to speak of, became the
Right.
third most visited park in San Francisco. And so
Wow.
that when I came into office, and the raging fight over what are we going to do, because half the people wanted to bring it back to cars full time, and the other half wanted to be a park, and we had to find some resolution. So I took it on, and now I'm recalled from office. We do have a
Right.
park, but the park is in jeopardy. So we can talk more about that. But that's
Right.
kind of the overview of what all happened.
Right. Well, thank you for that. And that's what I mean by champion. You know, this movement needs people who are willing to put their career on the line for what is right. And I think most of our listeners are, all of our listeners agree that more public space and less space for the automobile is the proper use of city space. Now, that's not true everywhere, but in an area like San Francisco, it certainly seems like it. So there was a proposition that all of San Francisco voted on, which was Prop K, and that was to turn the Great Highway into a Sunset Dunes Park 24/7, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And before we get into that, New York Central Park has been dealing with this for 20 years with transportation alternatives, turning Central Park into a car-free area. And they finally won. They finally got cars out of the park. And it's a beautiful urban environment now. And I think San Francisco even led the way after the earthquake. And was it 84 when the Embarcadero fell? And
89.
they
That's
and they
right.
took that 89, sorry, and they took that highway out. So the idea of removing a highway is not unthought of, and when the whole city voted on it, they voted to keep it, correct?
Right. That's right. So the Prop K was asking this question, what should we do with this section of Great Highway? And should it become a park? We just needed to get voter clarity. And so the entire city voted because the coast does belong to everybody. It does not just belong to one neighborhood.
Right.
So the whole city voted, and a majority, 55%, said, let's turn it into a park. But the majority who live closest to the actual park, the people who live in my district, voted against it. And so that
Right.
was the beginning of my end because people felt that I didn't represent the folks who live in my district. So
Well,
that is,
I wanted
yeah,
to talk about that because I read an article that said the number of people that voted for Prop K in your district, in District 4, basically equaled the number of people that voted for the recall to remove you from office. So it was not, even though they often couch it as an overwhelming recall, it was really the same number of people who voted to recall you as people who had voted for Prop K. Is that correct?
right. And well, also like this was a special election, quite low turnout, about 40% turnout. So 60% of the people of eligible voters did not bother to vote in my
Right,
recall election. And so
right,
you could argue only the most motivated and angry people will bother to mail in this ballot at an off election
right,
cycle. And it was true that a majority in the Sunset opposed Prop K, the creation of Sunset Dunes, but that was because I call it the boogeyman was still alive and well. It was all theoretical. We didn't know what was going to happen to traffic patterns and traffic flow, and that was a big fear for people. And it's legitimate because it's not just getting where you need to go. It's also are the cars going to divert through my neighborhood street and my
sure,
kids are in jeopardy if they want to cross the street with these madmen car drivers who are like just frustrated, so they're going to speed through a residential area, right? So those were legitimate concerns, and so a lot of people voted no on Sunset Dunes because of the fear of the unknown. But once we actually closed the road and created the park, and the traffic studies show minimal impact, so there is no Carmageddon, right? It didn't
right,
happen. And so now, and the park is quite lovely. So people, many people that I met said, I voted no on K, I voted no on the park, but now that I see the park in existence, I like it, and the traffic is not as bad as I feared. And so
right.
therefore, I've changed my mind. So I think there's a lot of folks who like the park, but it didn't mean they were motivated to turn out to vote no on my recall because people are busy, weren't motivated to mail it in unless you were rabidly against this park and I want to teach the supervisor a lesson, or I want to. So those are the folks who mailed in their ballots, and that's
Right.
why I got recalled.
Well, let me ask you, does it teach people a lesson? Is Mayor Lurie, the mayor of San Francisco, now going to be a little bit more shy about moving forward with some of his ideas to upzone the city a little bit? And will other city supervisors be a little bit more cautious about backing these kinds of things?
There will definitely be a chilling effect because the recallers are so emboldened now. They were able to, now they can say, we knocked out a city supervisor who supported car-free, supported urbanist issues. And so there will be a chilling effect because, I mean, we tried to make the case to folks who care about bikes, who care about open space, who care about urbanism, to this is more than just saving Joel Engardio's job. This is about, right, the issues you care about and whether there will be a chilling effect or not. Like unfortunately, we weren't able to kind of motivate people to come out and see the existential threat. Because I'm sure some people thought, well, it's just one city council member, or the park's going to be fine, or like, I mean, now we have a lot to deal with because there's a momentum now to go back to the ballot next June at the next election to kill the park. Because now there are city supervisors who are never for it in the first place, who are trying to find their coalition to put this back on the ballot. The whole city will have to vote on it again. So the hope is that the longer the park exists, the more people come to see and love it, and then won't want to give it up. And so that's what we need to do between now and next June is really activate the park more and more. I mean, it's already the third most visited park in San Francisco, so it's doing pretty well, but we need
Right.
to showcase how important this park is. Small
Yes.
businesses are seeing an increase in sales who have their business near the park. So that's going to be an important data point or important talking point to say, look,
Sure.
don't kill this park. It's good for business. So it's a way, we're going to have to build coalitions. Like people who want the car-free space are going to have to work with business owners to say, this is good for business, this is good for the economy, and it's good for our health and our well-being and being able to get where we want to go on a bike, and enjoy the coast. We're going to have to like combine these benefits so it builds enough of a coalition to really save the park.
Right. That's a lot like congestion pricing in New York City. People were scared of it, so they were fearful of the idea and voted against it. But now that it's there, almost universally, people support it. I was just in the city and it has changed. It is a little bit lighter in traffic, quieter, cleaner, and people are very happy. We talk a lot on the show about supporting people that are in your position, that are going out on a limb. Did you get the support you needed from the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, from Scott Wiener, from Mayor Lurie, from other people who understand how important urban design, park design, moving cars out of our city center is?
Yes and no. Like, so the Bike Coalition was wonderful. They endorsed against the recall and they put out communications to tell people come out and help.
Right.
Scott Wiener was a big champion. Mayor Lurie completely stayed out of it. He didn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. He did not want to touch this issue. Although the irony is that my recall was about Great Highway and Sunset Dunes, of course, but the park opened 6 months ago, and the park is extremely popular, and the traffic Carmageddon never came. And so the recallers had to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to recall this guy if the park is popular and we can't show pictures of traffic jams?
Right.
So they pivoted a lot of their messaging to be about housing, because right now in San Francisco, we're dealing with our lack of housing, our housing crisis, and we're going to upzone parts of the city to allow for more apartment buildings and more affordable housing, and something I support wholeheartedly. And Mayor Lurie is pushing through a housing upzoning plan that he needs the votes to pass. And now that I'm gone, all the attention is now turning onto him
Right.
opposing his housing plan. So he stayed
Right.
out of my recall to try to calm things down for himself, but now he's in the fire.
You graduated Michigan State University. You went to Harvard Kennedy School of Government. What's next for you?
I don't know. I'm going to take some time just to catch my breath. This has been a wild ride, doing my job as a city supervisor and then having to defend against a recall. So I'm going to take a little time off, but I'm relatively young, so I still have a lot of energy and a lot of vision, and I want to do what I can to what I call create our best San Francisco, because we will not realize our full potential unless we let ourselves do bold things. And we cannot be the most progressive city that's afraid of change. We have to be the most progressive city that embraces the future. And the future is urbanism. The future is more car-free spaces. The future is really addressing climate change, like existential threat. I mean, the thing is, how are we ever going to address climate change if we can't close one road or build one apartment building without it becoming a referendum
Right.
on who gets to live in San Francisco
Right.
and assault on the character of the city? I mean, we have to make some changes.
Well, I hope that you stay in the fight because the fight needs champions like you. I saw what you posted on Facebook, I think, which was my time as city supervisor is shorter than I thought, but I was on the right side of history. And I think our listeners in Bike Talk agrees with this idea of less space for cars and more space for people ultimately wins out.
Right. And one thing I want to add is do something today that people will appreciate 50 years from now, even if they don't remember you. That's why I have a plaque above my desk that says, "What would Jimmy Carter do?" Right? Imagine if we spent the last 50 years doubling down on renewable energy and following the lead of Jimmy Carter, what he started, where we would be today. So
Right.
that's the context I want to leave people with.
What would JC do? Very good.
Right.
Joel Engardio, thank you for putting up the good fight. And thanks for coming on Bike Talk.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That was Joel Engardio, the San Francisco city supervisor for the Sunset Dunes district of San Francisco. And while we're talking about San Francisco and the Sunset Dunes, I had a chance to talk with a 14-year-old kid who uses that park and really enjoys it and doesn't want it to be turned back into a highway. So this is Quin Binzak coming on the show.
All right.
We were just speaking with Joel Engardio, who is the city supervisor for the district of the Sunset area where the Sunset Dunes Park is and the Great Highway. And of course, he was just recalled. Well, now I want to introduce to you a friend of mine, actually. He's the son of one of my good friends, Quin Binzak. Quin is 14 years old, and he is a user of the Sunset Dunes Park. Quin, welcome to Bike Talk.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Taylor. Yeah, I moved to San Francisco about a month and a half ago, just started high school, and I love it here. The parks are great. Just having the autonomy of like being able to, I have an electric scooter, using the trains, the buses, all of that is great. I mean, I have like two bus routes right outside my house.
Right. Oh,
And
that's great. Well, tell me a little bit about Sunset Dunes Park. How do you use that park?
well, so I recently moved to the Sunset District. I've gone a couple of times. I went a few times before I moved when I was visiting from Oakland while it was still the highway. And it was pretty cool to see the beach, but there wasn't much in the beach. But now that they have the park and now that I live here, I've gone on my electric scooter a few times because it's really fun to just go down the Great Highway. You're right along the beach and stuff.
Right.
And so even though it's close to cars, I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's a fun road to drive down." You can still go down it on like a bike or a scooter, and it's pretty fun. I've gone down. They've started putting stuff up on the highway, like just fun things. Like there's like a little bike park even
Oh,
with like
wow.
ramps and stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that they've put up,
On the
and
on the
so
asphalt of the highway that is now a park.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And so even I mean it hasn't even seemed, because one of the concerns was, oh, it's going to make it a hotspot. It isn't even like insanely busy with like tourists and stuff, but it's nice to have a place even for locals like me where it's like 10 minutes away. I can just go there. It's the beach. It's just a nice vibe.
Right. And you ride e-scooter, right?
Correct.
And can you
Yeah.
take that on the train with you or the BART with you when you go around? Because I do know that you are a big fan of mass transit and trains and all that.
That's part of the reason why I got a scooter instead of like a full size bike, actually, is you need like a fold for the Muni trains. It's supposed to be able to fold up, and
Oh,
I have a folding scooter. And so I'm able to take it on. And I mean, people take bikes and stuff on, but I just thought it was like easier. Like they don't care too much, but it was nice to have. So yeah, I use it combined with like the train all the time
your
to go to
dad was
school.
telling me a story, and I wonder if you could fill us in about how you and your friends use the BART.
Oh yeah, it was fun because I went over to back to the East Bay, back to Oakland where I used to live like a month ago to hang out with some friends, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're all gonna take Bart to this place to get lunch." And I was like, "Oh wow," because then we're all taking Bart, because like I used to take Bart a bunch, but then they were usually getting driven around, and it was really cool because we all did it together, and they
And
were
that's
just like,
because you're old enough now, or that they could kind of follow your lead in using some of this mass transit?
well, part of it is age. We're old enough now that we can go on our own. Um, but it isn't even just about following my lead because they were doing it on their own as well, like
Oh,
even without me, and it was just cool to know. But it was just nice to have that group experience, and it's about like just having the ability to, as teenagers, not have to rely on our parents for everything, and just have
a little bit more freedom.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Do you see yourself getting a driver's license when you turn 16 right away?
Personally, I do see myself getting a driver's license, but I also definitely feel like it's not necessary in the city specifically. Like you could definitely survive off of just using public transit or using scooters and bikes. Like there's really great infrastructure and stuff. I personally see myself getting one just because part of what I want to be when I grow up is I'm
Sure.
considering becoming working in public transit and becoming a bus driver. And you have to have a license to drive a bus.
Right. You've always been such a champion of mass transit, and I've always liked that about you. Quinn Binzak, age 14. Really great to see you, and thanks for coming on Bike Talk.
Great talking. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Quin has been a big public transportation champion for all of his 14 years. So I've
Amazing.
always been rooting for Quin, and was really glad to get a chance to talk to him on the show.
Great. Now I have the Deputy Executive Director of the League of American Bicyclists with an update.
Great.
Caron Whitaker, Deputy Executive Director of the League of American Bicyclists. Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be back.
We were talking to Monica Garrison, the founder of Black Girls Do Bike and Knox Academy.
We love Monica. We love Black Girls Do Bike and their mission. And in March, we collaborated with them to host a league cycling instructor seminar in Charlotte, North Carolina, where 12 Sheros received their certification. We have trained coaches who teach those LCI seminars. So you can look on our website, bikeleague.org, to see where a seminar is already happening. Or an organization or a community could reach out to us and request a seminar. We'd need to work with you to make sure we can get about 8 people signed up, and then we can have a coach come out and run the LCI training. League certified instructors learn how to teach bicycling, and then they can use all of our education materials, and they can be covered under our insurance when they teach. We also have a number of bike clubs that are covered under our insurance. Because we're that umbrella group, it makes it more affordable for both individual LCIs and those bike clubs.
All right, and you can find more about becoming an LCI or getting a seminar in your area at
bikeleague.org.
Another thing that you do is you sponsor legislation. What's going on with that?
In 2021, Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure law that had all these grants available to local governments and to states to do safety projects, to do access projects. And we just saw a lot of great projects around biking and walking, making sure there was safe biking and walking access on bridges, making connections across communities so that there was a connected network, all kinds of things like that. But there was so much money that went out that there were a lot of grants that were awarded, but they haven't quite gotten them under contract yet. So taking a grant from the US DOT saying, hey, congratulations, you're going to get that award, to signing the contract so the local government or the state can start work and the money's flowing, can take a long time. There were a number of grants in that position when the administration changed. And then we saw the Trump administration put a lot of grants on hold. And so they weren't moving forward. Now, just last week, a lot of those state governments, local communities got letters from DOT saying, we're canceling your grant because our priority is vehicular travel. And so these grants that were meant to be multimodal, were meant to do complete streets or improve safety on an intersection for all users or things like that, they're now just getting a letter saying, sorry, our focus is on vehicular travel and we think this grant is hostile to cars.
That's the top priority for this administration.
Yes. So we've talked before about build grants or raise grants, which are meant to be multimodal, Safe Streets for All grants that are there to help local governments fund their safety priorities, Reconnecting Communities grants, which were meant to help reconnect communities, make sure that there's biking and walking access after a transportation project may have divided it, like a highway coming through a community. Grants in all those programs are just being cut, and these local governments, these state governments, they were following the rules. They did exactly what the DOT told them to do over the Biden administration. And then they've been delayed for a year, and now they're being told, you're never getting this money. And so that's really frustrating. There's a small town in Alabama where they were really counting on a biking and walking grant to help with economic development and community development. There was one in Delaware on a very dangerous road where they've had a lot of fatalities and serious injuries, where they wanted to put in better bike facilities. They wanted to put in like a median island in the middle of the road that gives pedestrians a place to stop if they don't make it all the way across. That grant is gone. We're seeing that all around the country. So One thing we used to talk a lot about are road diets, but we also think of those as things that may reduce speed or reduce speeding and would add infrastructure for other users, people biking, walking, getting off transit, using mobility devices. So yeah, anything that's taking space away from drivers and motor vehicles.
All right. I'm sorry for us all.
Yeah. So, and one thing we're asking folks, we have an action alert out aimed at senators. Again, at bikeleague.org. Look at the Action Center on our website, where we're asking people to reach out to their senators and say, hey, we care about biking. Like, you need to care for your constituents. Everyone deserves a safe trip home, whether you're biking, walking, taking transit, or driving. And the DOT is not allowing local governments to create that safe ride home, that safe trip home. We work with both sides. We just saw a bill introduced in Congress this week that's a bipartisan bill to continue the Safe Streets for All program, which allows local governments to do these plans. What we need now is for those members of Congress to speak up, talk to people at the U.S. Department of Transportation and say, we need safe trips home. They need to stand up for these grants that their local governments applied for in good faith and allow them to make these infrastructure changes to make roads safe for all of their constituents.
And we know that when you make streets safer for people on bikes, it's better for everybody, including drivers.
Absolutely. We've seen those studies for years. And the US DOT is saying safety is their number one concern. If safety is their number one concern, then they need to be concerned about everyone. And they need to look at some of these best practices, even their own proven safety countermeasures that include bike lanes and walkways and reducing speed.
Thanks for your work.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that was Caron Whitaker. And it's always good to hear what's going on in Washington, because sometimes the news is not good out of Washington.
Oh, yeah? Why? Did something happen?
Well, just meaning that, the government's
kidding.
cutting everything.
Kidding.
Oh. I always forget to say this, Nick, but I think we have to push it. If you like the show, like us on social media, give us likes, leave us reviews. We've been getting some really wonderful listener emails, and it really, I think, ups the level of our conversation when we are sort of speaking with and about what our listeners are talking to. And I also got to bring up this bookshop. We have this great library of books on our website at biketalk.org, where if you buy one of the books in the bookshop, we get a little bit of money and the author still gets money. And Barnes & Noble, or Amazon, even worse, doesn't get the money.
I think of Barnes & Noble now as being like the local bookstore.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Yeah. So go to biketalk.org and look at the bookshop books and find something for yourself or for a gift for a cycling nerd in your life.
You mentioned listener emails. It's not an email, but we got something on Instagram from someone called Martinique Velo. I think they're in Martinique.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't mind going there.
Yeah. I love this show. Not trying too hard to be funny or snarky. Simply interesting talk about bikes and policy. I just recently found you, and your show just cheers me up so much in this world going so weird on us all.
Wow. Did they leave a name?
Martinique Velo.
Oh. Well, that's great. And it's nice to know that people are finding the show. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, Nick, about comments on the platforms and likes and shares really help us reach a wider audience and turn bikers into advocates and maybe advocates into politicians and politicians into champions.
And I think maybe we should say this every episode, is that the more people who ride, the better off we all are. Not just people on bikes, but
people in cars. If you have to drive a car, there's less people on the road. I think that's the slogan for the League of American Bicyclists, Caron Whitaker's organization. The more people on bikes, the world is better for everybody. So that's really nice.
Last episode, we were talking about Costco. Well, we talked about it in an even earlier episode, and somebody had objected to me and our other guest, Diana Lisa, saying that you don't want to tell new people that they need to ride to Costco.
Right.
to do their shopping on a bike. And, I said something about, you get killed or something. And I immediately took it back. But it brings up something that Dave Snyder, we talked about earlier about bikeshare. He has this newsletter out, and he had a newsletter dedicated to messaging. And he said, I wish we had the tens of billions of dollars the car industry spends to sell driving to the American public. The images of wide open roads and idyllic wilderness scenes they depict are nothing like the reality of freeway traffic, and in fact, more like what you actually experience on a bike. Since we don't have those resources, the least we can do is stop undermining ourselves with messages that highlight the dangers of cycling. Car companies never advertise the risks of driving, except to sell the safety features that supposedly eliminate them. Here are some things we can do instead. Avoid stoking fear in our messaging. Stop always depicting cyclists with helmets. Celebrate when biking is safer than driving. And remind people that riding a bike is safer than not riding a bike. Oh, that one's interesting.
Yeah, well, those are great. And I couldn't agree more. And I know that you and I struggle on the show about, how often do we cover a hit and run, death of a cyclist, or how often do we talk about a dangerous intersection or something like that? And unfortunately, that's part of our world. And that's partly why we're doing the show, which is to create a safer world for people to walk and bike in. And I would even argue to drive in.
Yeah. But, also just to get both sides here, the system is designed to make it harder to do anything but drive. So,
Right.
You could risk your life to.
Well, that goes back to Costco. Costco is designed to drive to. And that's why Diana Lisa is talking about bringing back the American village. And that's why Lindsay Sturman is talking about LCI, which is Livable Communities Initiative, or, 15-minute cities. And that is that whole idea of you don't need to go to Costco to buy toilet paper or a pair of pants or a TV or a washer and dryer. You can go, to the washer and dryer store to buy the washer and dryer. And you can do that in a car when you need a car. And you can go to the corner store in your village for everything else.
Yeah, that's Diana Lisa's ideas, turning suburbias into villages.
Which I like.
I like it too. That's why we had her on.
It is Charlie here, intern for Bike Talk, with some news updates. In late December, Brooklyn will get a Dutch-style cycling hub from the company Unipod. The hub will be able to park a large number of bikes and have essential services like charging, battery swapping, and basic repairs. More in New York, outside of the DEA's headquarters in Manhattan, a new protected bike lane has effectively been seized by the DEA, Streetsblog NYC reports. The DEA has claimed that they need the space free for responding to emergencies. They don't actually respond to 911 calls, by the way. And people have kind of just noticed that they've been using the space for parking. So that's great. Also for any New Yorkers, this one's positive. There's the Tour de Bronx that's happening October 5th. They offer 10, 25, and 40-mile routes, and registration is still open, and again, free. From CityLab, the Trump administration has canceled several grants for projects around the country that would boost street safety, help bikes or pedestrians. The reason for these cuts being simply that the projects are hostile to cars. Surprise, surprise. And in some positive news from Nick's stomping grounds, the city of Northampton in Massachusetts has received a $500,000 Complete Streets grant for Locust Street. The plans include a 5-foot bike lane with a 4-foot striped buffer. So way to go, Northampton.
So Jim Cadenhead is coming. He's going to talk to us a little bit about bike maintenance. And one of the things that I love about Jim coming on the show, Nick, is that he helps me. And I like doing a lot of my own maintenance on my bike. It gives me a little bit of power to be able to do some of that stuff. Occasionally I have to go to Manny, who has a little bike store down at the end of my block called Spokes and Stuff in West Hollywood, and get some help. But otherwise, I can handle most of that stuff. I can do gears, I can do brakes, I can do, certainly flat tires and all that kind of stuff. I can true wheels. What else can I do? You know what I can't do? I can't do disc brakes, and I can't do electronic shifting. So I'm a little bit old school. I need Jim to help me get caught up.
But you don't have disc brakes probably or electronic shifting.
I do on my Surly. I don't have electronic shifting, but I have disc brakes on the Surly. And I got to tell you, I really like them. I'm a fan of disc brakes all the way.
I thought you gave me this really old-fashioned bike when I came out there. So
well, that was that Quin circuit that you borrowed. Yeah, that's from the early '80s, and that has caliper brakes and all that. But it has some campy equipment on that did not come when that Schwinn was bought in the early '80s. That was added on later.
Well, Jim C is here.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Jim, how you doing?
Thought you were going to talk to us about lights.
Well, it is getting darker earlier, so I think it's important for us to at least talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
We're going to lose daylight saving times, and it'll get dark even earlier.
Everywhere right now it's starting to get dark earlier, and yes, in about a month, it's going to be 5:30. It's going to be dark, so...
I tell you, you guys, we sound like my dad. Talking to my dad, well, it's getting dark early here in Michigan, and the weather's really been great. It's 65 degrees. So what are we, a bunch of old men talking about what time it gets dark? But Jim, I think you make a great point. It is getting dark earlier, and we do need to be lit up. One of the great things that Jim Pocrass always says is that if you are lit and you have some kind of altercation with a car, you are in a much better position to fight that legally. Can help you in any kind of court situation. So what you got for us, Jim, as far as lights go?
You are right about being able to be seen, or Jim is right. If you go in and say, I have reflective vests or whatever, it helps out. Every single state has different laws in terms of what you need to have from a legality standpoint. But really, I think from a safety perspective, it's a great idea to have something on your bike. When I was younger, I lived by the mantra that you can't hit what you can't see. But I don't feel that way anymore. So, I have been doing late night pizza delivery up until a few years ago. So I was out all the time at night. And I've got to say, one of my favorite things for night riding is a dynamo hub and wired lights.
Yeah.
Those are
so
pretty
what does
phenomenal.
That mean? That means that the power comes from the hub of your wheel?
That's exactly right. You're generating the power. You don't need batteries. There are a lot of different versions of these, and it does require extra wires around your bicycle, especially if you're going to be running a rear light. But they do all kinds of great things. So some of them will power a USB port that will also charge a phone if you're out bike touring or whatever. Some of them, they will do front and rear lights. Some of the lights that are out there, they have sensors on them, so they'll come on automatically when it gets dark enough. There are a lot of really cool things out there these days. And the newer hubs for these, think Sun, S-O-N, or Shutter Precision, or even Shimano makes hubs that are dynamo hubs.
You have to change the hub of your current wheels. So you have to rebuild your wheels with a dynamo hub to make this work.
Right. Rebuild your wheel and or get a new wheel.
Okay.
And there are a lot of great options out there. They used to be very slow because they used really big magnets. So when you engaged the light, it would draw a lot of energy from your front wheel. Now with modern stuff, LEDs, I mean, it really does not, it's almost not noticeable. So if you're running a really nice new hub and nice new lights with a dynamo system, it's negligible the amount of draw it is and the amount of friction it creates in your front wheel.
So it doesn't make it that much harder to pedal.
Correct.
Okay. Can they be stolen? Because that's the problem I have with the lights that I use now, that I take off the handlebars and I plug in with a USB port to charge. If I leave them on the bike at the gym or wherever I'm going, sometimes I come back and they're gone. So I have to remember to take them off the bike when I go in someplace.
There are a lot of cool quick release chargeable, rechargeable lights out there, and I'm guessing that you have a pair of those.
Yes.
And the lights on a dynamo system are not quick release, but I hesitate to say that nothing can't be stolen, because Everything can be stolen. In fact, once when we were hosting at Bike Talk, we had a whole suite of bikes stolen out of the hallway. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
things, it's easy for things to get stolen. But everything on a dynamo hub, everything on a dynamo lighting system, all the lights are bolted in place. The dynamo hub, if you use a quick release one or if you use a through axle one, you may want to put a little bit of extra security onto that hub.
Do you install those at your bike shop, Jim?
Yeah, we do everything. We build the wheels, we installed those. Yeah, so if you can find a bike that comes with them, there are not very many in the U.S. It can sometimes be almost as inexpensive as getting a wheel and light and all the setups built and put onto an existing bike. But there are a lot of cool things out there.
We were talking about you're doing your own maintenance, and that's one thing I can't do is build a wheel. That's really tricky. Whether it's 3-cross or 4-cross, I just never mastered that one.
When I was in LA, it was interesting. I used to teach wheel building at the Bicycle Kitchen. And wheel building is the kind of thing where when you get good at it, it becomes pretty manageable, but it takes a lot of time. So you
Right.
really have to work at it for a long time. But so lights are generally measured by lumens, and lumens kind of are talking about the total brightness of a light system. And if you are riding around in a lit city and you don't need to be able to see in the dark, like you don't need to be able to see curbs that are unlit or potholes that are hiding like ninjas, somewhere between 300 and 500 lumens for a front light is probably fine. I mean, this is going to be something that we'll be able to see a little bit with, and it will get you seen. If you need to see stuff on a path in a rural area that's not really well lit, they say something like 500 to 1500 lumens is what you're looking for. And if you are going to be riding off-road, I say 1,000 to 3,500, 4,000, however many. You can go way up there with lumens to see in the dark in the woods. But it's very, very important that you actually get something that is bright enough to handle the task that you're looking for.
But if you get a dynamo, you're not going to be switching out lights, right?
That's exactly correct. So with the dynamo, there are a lot of different options in terms of lights that are out there. Many of them have settings for what their output is. I would consider picking something that has the features and qualities that you're looking for. There is an American-made company that makes one called the Beacon, and the Beacon is awesome because you can plug a USB. It has a USB port in the back of the light.
Oh, yeah.
There are German companies, Schmidt and Mueller, and a few others out there, Japanese company Sanyo, that are making lights that are available, that work really, really well. So it would just be kind of picking out which one is going to handle what you're looking for it to do.
I have a dynamo in my Brompton.
Oh, do you really? Oh, that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, I've always loved it. Always have a light. But do you have any suggestions for people who aren't going to do that?
Yeah, if you're not going to go with a dynamo, figure out a lighting system that's going to work for you that is realistically something you can manage. If you are the kind of person who is not going to remember to charge your lights throughout the week, then maybe a battery lighted system is better for you, or something that it uses a much bigger rechargeable battery. Like some systems have separate batteries that are pretty big that you can charge up and they'll last for a month. But it's important to think about how you're going to be using it and whether or not this is the right thing for you.
Good point. Good idea.
Right. One guy also mentioned to us, Jim, to use your lights during the daytime. Where do you fall down on that?
So daytime running lights, they are becoming increasingly more popular in order to just draw attention to yourself.
Right.
I probably am never going to do it. But because one of the other things that I've heard is that when people are intoxicated, if something draws their attention, they're going to steer towards it.
I've heard that.
I tend to kind of run on the side of wear something that is a little bit bright rather than have daytime running lights on your bike. But there are some really cool daytime lights out there that also act as cameras. Garmin makes one called the Vario. It's probably one of the most popular. It acts as a camera, and if you are running the Garmin computer, it will even show you when you're being passed, what's coming at you. So again, this is a level of data that I really don't want to know, but there are a lot of folks out there who like to know when things are approaching them from behind.
Yeah, I got that, and I was fascinated by it, and then now I can't find it, but it was interesting.
I don't know. I think I would spend all my time looking at what's coming up from behind me. I feel like I can hear where they are behind me.
I'm in the same group as you. I don't need to know when something's coming up from behind me. And if something's coming too close, I don't actually probably want to know.
Right. Jim Cadenhead, thanks for coming on the show and lighting the way, so to speak.
Oh, dang. Yeah, I wish you guys the best, and I hope that if you're out there at night, and I hope that you are, that you can see where you're going and you don't run into anything unexpected.
Perfect. Hey, next time you're on, can we talk about how to fix disc brakes or
Yeah,
adjust?
certainly. Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah, there are a couple different styles, the mechanical and the hydraulic. It's easy enough to dig into some quick tips on what you should do in order to get each of them to work.
Great. Well, Jim Cadenhead, thanks a lot.
All right, you guys have a great night.
And that's the show.
I think so. We want to thank our guests, Joel Engardio, Justin Hu-Nguyen, Caron Whitaker, Jim Cadenhead, Quin Binzak, and our regulars, Julie Richard, Josh Haglund, Charlie Lighthizer, Lindsay Sturman, Stacy Randecker, and Amy Ziering.
You got a quote?
Yeah. You know, I do. Going off of what Jim was saying about drinking and driving, I found a quote that said, I have a stationary bike at home. It's my drinking bike.
Yeah, we could do a whole segment on drinking and biking, huh?
Maybe we should ask Jim about that.
Why?
Because he might have some ideas about the legality or the illegality of drinking and riding your bike.
Oh, you're talking about Jim, our lawyer. I thought you were talking about Jim
Jim,
C.
our
and
lawyer,
I was
not
wondering
Jim,
if you
our
were
mechanic.
implying. All right.
Ride safe.
This episode of Bike Talk is sponsored by the law offices of Pocras and De Los Reyes, with offices in Los Angeles and Bakersfield and serving all of Southern California.
Bike Talk is a project of CRSP and the Los Angeles Eco-Village Institute. And that was Bike Talk. If you have a story, a tip, or a topic, head over to biketalk.org and send us a message. Talk again next week.
Get that car out of my way. I wanna ride my bike today. Keep me fit, get me there. I won't go sinking up the air. Leave behind the daily grind. Let your mind unwind. If it's life, pretend to life. Better get yourself a bike. Oh, got yourself a bike.